Hi, everyone. I'm children's book author Karen Nespoli. Happy Groundhog Day. I'm very excited to be here today to share my story with you, and it's entitled Gertie Saves the Day. Now, you may be wondering why I wrote a story about Groundhog's Day. Well, the answer is very simple. Groundhog Day is one of my favorite and has been since I was a child. I love to get up and get to the television and find out what the prediction was. Would there be 6 more weeks of winter, or would we have an early spring? Now, back in the day, we had snow days. So I was kind of rooting for 6 more weeks of winter so I'd get another snow day or two where I could go outside and play in the snow with my sled, and I can make some snowmen and snow angels and just have some fun. So, are we ready to start the story? Here we go. Gertie Saves the Day by Karen Patricia Nespoli and illustrated by Daniela Massaroni. Gertie Groundhog rushed around getting ready for school. Today was not the day to be late. Mrs. Mole, her first grade teacher, had a surprise for the class. Gertie hardly slept at all. Gertie, you better hurry or you'll be late for school, shouted her mom. Gertie kissed her mom goodbye, grabbed her lunch, and dashed out the door. As Gertie got closer to school, she could see Jeff waiting for her. Hey, Shorty, teased Jeff. Want to play some basketball? Gertie frowned. Jeff knew she was too short and was always picked last for the basketball team. Not today, shouted Gertie as she whizzed past Jeff. Good morning, Groundhog, said Mrs. Mole. Gertie Groundhog sat on the edge of her seat, waiting impatiently for Mrs. Mole to announce the surprise. What could it be? A special visitor? A field trip? A class party? Mrs. Mole cleared her throat. Groundhog Day is coming up, and we need to pick a new groundhog for this celebration. She announced, one of you will be selected. Now, who could tell me about Groundhog Day? Groundhog Day is like Christmas, and we all get gifts, chuckled Phil. I know, said Amber. We can eat as much ice cream as we want. No, said Sam, it has something to do with the weather and a groundhog's shadow. Sam is correct, said Mrs. Mole. February 2nd is Groundhog Day. Each year, one special groundhog is selected to climb out of our burrow and look for a shadow. What's so important about a groundhog's shadow? Gertie asked. Legend says that if a groundhog sees its shadow and runs back into the burrow, there will be 6 more weeks of winter. If the groundhog doesn't see its shadow, spring will arrive early, explained Mrs. Mole. Reporters and photographers come from miles around to record this special event. Gertie started to daydream about the reporters and imagined herself smiling for the cameras. Everyone will have a chance to compete, added Mrs. Mole. Compete? Gertie asked nervously. Yes, this is a competition, added Mrs. Mole. There will be several challenges. The groundhog that passes all of the challenges will be our winner. That'll be me, boasted Jeff. Gertie, you won't have to worry. You're too short to have a shadow. Gertie frowned. If I don't have a shadow, she replied, then that means spring will come early and we can go outside and play. No more hats, scarves, and boots. That sounds good to me. That night, Gertie kept tossing and turning and thinking about the competition. She worried that Jeff was right. Maybe she was too short to win the competition. She decided to try her best and ignore Jeff's comments. Groundhogs, called Mrs. Mole, gather around. Your first challenge is ready. First, you will crawl under the row of chairs to the other side. Next, jump into and out of the hula hoop 5 times. And finally, stack all 10 cups in a triangle and walk to the finish line. Groundhogs hurried to line up. Amber was first. She scurried under the chairs, but got tangled in the hula hoop. Chuck thought it would be faster to walk on top of the chairs and was disqualified. Vicky was just about to put the last cup on her triangle when she let out a big "Achoo!" that sent all of the cups flying in all directions. Jeff crawled under the chairs, jumped in and out of the hula hoop quickly, and had no trouble stacking the cups. Easy peasy, added Jeff. Gertie took a deep breath. She scurried under the chairs, jumped in and out of the hula hoop, stacked the cups perfectly, and made it to the finish line faster than Jeff. There's only one more challenge. It is the basketball challenge. You will have 3 chances to make a basket, and I will add the number of baskets you make to your score, Mrs. Mole announced. Oh no, thought Gertie, not basketball. All eyes were on Gertie. She picked up the basketball and missed the first 2 shots. Gertie Groundhog took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and took a shot. I did it, she screamed. Well, it appears we have a tie, said Mrs. Mole. Congratulations to Jeff and Gertie. Tomorrow is the last challenge. You'll have to climb to the top of the burrow, look around for your shadow as quickly as possible. The next day, Gertie was ready. She had practiced and knew exactly what to do. She scurried to the top of the burrow confidently. She felt the cold, wet snow on her paws. Just as Gertie turned to look for her shadow, a big plop of snow fell from a branch and knocked her flat on her back. The sun was so bright that she could not see anything, least of all her shadow. She began to shiver and her teeth began to chatter as she fell over into the snow. Gertie, are you okay? Asked Mrs. Mole. Gertie nodded. Mrs. Mole wrote something down on her clipboard, and Gertie was sure it wasn't good. Jeff looked more confident than ever as he climbed out of the burrow and saw his shadow. He walked around slowly, smiling and waving as if the photographers were watching. Mrs. Mole wrote some notes on her clipboard. Nailed it, he bragged to Gertie. I saw my shadow, he boasted. That afternoon, Mrs. Mole said, I'm ready to announce our special groundhog. Both of you did an excellent job, but I can only select one of you. Drum roll, please, Jeff chuckled. My choice for special groundhog is Jeff, announced Mrs. Mole. Better luck next time, Shorty, teased Jeff. Gertie slumped in her seat and tried to ignore Jeff's teasing. Groundhog Day arrived. All of the groundhogs gathered outside to watch Jeff. Gertie Groundhog grumbled inside as she waited for Jeff to pop out from the burrow. Outside the burrow, reporters and photographers gathered. It was cold and cloudy. The sun peeked through the clouds, warming the waiting crowd. When it was time, Jeff climbed out of the burrow and didn't move. Gertie could not believe her eyes after all of his bragging about being famous. Gertie hesitated for a minute and then hurried to his side. "What's wrong?" Gertie asked. "There are people staring at me," whimpered Jeff. "Their cameras are all flashing at the same time. I can't move." Gertie smiled and led Jeff by the hand. They walked around together while the photographer snapped their photos. The sky was dark and cloudy. "Looks like we'll have an early spring," shouted one of the reporters. Suddenly, the sun poked out from behind the clouds. "Oh no," sighed Gertie, "6 more weeks of winter?" Just then, a huge cloud covered the sun, and there were no shadows. "Spring will come early," announced the mayor, and everyone cheered. "Thanks, Gertie," said Jeff. "But why were you so nice to me after all the times I called you Shorty? Groundhog Day is too important, and I didn't want to see it spoiled." "Not only did you save the day, Gertie," said Mrs. Mole, "but this was the first time we had 2 groundhogs celebrate this special day. You know what that means?" "No homework tonight?" chuckled Jeff. "No, silly," Gertie replied. "We make a great team." "You got it, Gertie." Happy Groundhog Day. Wow. I hope you enjoyed meeting Gertie and her friends, including Jeff. I want to thank everyone for being here today, and I want to thank the Wildlife Prairie Park for hosting my read aloud today. And I'd like to invite you that if you want to know more about Gertie Saves the Day, or if you'd like to learn more about Gertie the Groundhog at the park, you can click the links below and get the information you need. I also want to remind you that February 2nd at sunrise, Gertie will be making her predictions. So if you'd like to join Facebook, you could watch it live or you can come to the park. Well, everyone, it's been really terrific. I'm so happy to be here and to have shared this story with you. I want to wish you a happy Groundhog Day and bye for now.